What would you do if your career, your future, and even your dignity were put to the test in an indecent bet, all to prove your worth? Drive, Alex's research lab was a hotbed of talent, a veritable powerhouse of brilliant minds, but for Dr. Chloe, it was merely a place where her brilliance went unnoticed. She was a breathtaking lab technician, one of those people who see solutions where others see only dead ends, but she was constantly overshadowed by the arrogance and power of her boss. Medical Director Alex, with his impeccable suit and superior smile, he made a point of relegating her to the background, as if her genius were merely a distant echo of the glory he craved for himself. Chloe, meanwhile, continued her tireless work, delving into piles of data and samples, hoping that one day her hard work and intelligence would finally speak louder than the status quo imposed by Alex. The routine of disdain and hard work was abruptly shattered by the emergence of a new and mysterious disease outbreak, spreading at a frightening rate, putting everyone in the lab on high alert. The tension was palpable, and with each new contamination statistic, the atmosphere grew heavier and more oppressive. In an emergency meeting, where the air was thick with nervousness and urgency, Dr. Chloe, her voice firm, raised her hand and presented her theory. She had spent sleepless nights poring over every detail of the analyses and believed she had found a pattern, an anomaly that others had overlooked. Her blue eyes, normally calm and focused, shone with fierce determination as she explained her hypothesis, but Alex's gaze, filled with disdain, was a cold wall of disbelief. He interrupted her mid-sentence with a dry, condescending laugh, the kind of sound that makes anyone's skin crawl with anger. "Absurd, Dr. Chloe," he said, his tone designed to humiliate. "Your theory has no basis in fact, and we're wasting precious time with this nonsense." The entire room fell silent, and the weight of humiliation fell on Chloe's shoulders, but instead of shrinking back, she stared at him, a silent challenge in her eyes. The air in the room grew even heavier, a dangerous game of power and ego. Alex, seeing that his humiliation hadn't broken Chloe's spirit, decided to go further, a sneer that didn't reach his cold eyes. He leaned forward on the table, like a predator about 2 pounds, and made the bet, the words tumbling from his lips like sweet poison. "I propose a challenge, Dr. Chloe," he said, and the entire room held its breath. "Decipher this disease in 7 days. Show that your genius is more than empty words, and, out of sheer admiration, I will do something unbelievable. I will become your husband." The offer was absurd, a direct affront to his professional and personal life. The audience's reaction was one of shock and discomfort, some looking away, others staring at each other in silence. Alex's proposal was a direct shot to Chloe's chest, not just an attack on her professional competence, but a personal insult, a way of reducing her value to a bizarre and tasteless bet. It was a way of saying that she would only be worthy of recognition if she accepted the rules of his game, a game in which she was the expendable piece. But Chloe, to everyone's surprise, didn't back down, not even when his words hit their lowest point. The bet, however, came with a catch. Alex's voice hardened, and his smile faded, revealing the threat behind the joke. "But," he continued, his tone leaving no room for negotiation, "if you fail, if you can't decipher the outbreak in 7 days, you're out. Your job, your career, everything you've built in this lab ends here." The proposition was an ultimatum, an or-nothing scenario. For him, it was just a power play, a way to get rid of a subordinate he considered a threat, but for Chloe, it was a chance to prove him wrong. Chloe's dilemma was cruel: accept the bet, with all the risks and humiliations it entailed, or give up once and for all, accepting defeat and the loss of her job. It was a decision that weighed heavily on her, a choice between humiliation and the possibility of proving her true capabilities. The future of her career, and perhaps her life, hung in the balance, and the decision she made in the next few moments would define everything. The clock was ticking, and the challenge, however absurd, had been launched, with her reputation and professional future at stake. Dr. Chloe wasn't one to accept challenges out of mere professional vanity. Her motivation went far beyond proving a point to Alex or keeping the job she so valued. The true reason for accepting the indecent bet was personal, intimate, something she kept secret. The mysterious, spreading disease wasn't just a laboratory case for her. One of her closest family members had been affected, and the sight of her loved one suffering drove her with a force no one else could understand. This was the pain, this secret connection, that drove her to work with an urgency and dedication that seemed superhuman. Beyond the family motivation, there was also a deep rivalry with Alex, a hurt stemming from an unresolved past, a past they had both kept secret. They were once college classmates, a pair of scientific prodigies who, at one point, shared dreams and ambitions. There was a history between them, a connection that, for obscure reasons, had abruptly broken, leaving behind a trail of hurt and resentment. Alex's challenge was, for him, an opportunity to exert power, but for Chloe, it was a chance to finally come to terms with the past and show that she was more than the shadow he had tried to create. As the race against time began, Chloe secluded herself in her lab, her heart heavy and her mind racing, delving into the files and data surrounding the outbreak. It was in this process that she found something that seemed unlikely, an old diary, hidden among the dusty reports of a deceased scientist who had worked in that very lab decades ago. The diary, handwritten and yellowed, contained notes about research that seemed connected to the current outbreak. It was as if the universe were giving her a clue, a sign that she was on the right track. The discovery of the diary triggered a new wave of adrenaline. It wasn't just a notebook, it was a treasure trove of information, a key that could unlock the door to a cure for the disease. With the diary in her hands, Chloe felt her mission become even more urgent. She wasn't just racing against time to fulfill her bet, but also to honor the memory of a forgotten scientist and save the lives the disease was taking. The weight of responsibility on her shoulders was immense, but the hope the diary brought was a powerful fuel for the journey. However, the search for the truth wouldn't be easy. The deceased scientist's research threatened the company's internal politics, which seemed more concerned with public image and profits than solving the problem. Chloe realized she would need to work in the shadows, away from the prying eyes and manipulations of Alex and his team, to decipher the notes and find the answer before anyone could stop her. It was a dangerous game of cat and mouse, where every misstep could mean the end of her journey. With each page she turned in the diary, a new piece of the puzzle fell into place, revealing a story of neglect and buried secrets that, if exposed, could shake the very foundations of that lab. Chloe now understood that Alex's challenge wasn't just about the bet, but an attempt to silence her, to prevent her from uncovering the truth he somehow feared. The diary was proof that the illness wasn't a random outbreak, but rather the result of something that had happened in that lab long ago. Chloe dove headfirst into the notes, deciphering the scientist's words as if they were a secret code, in a race against the clock and against the forces that wanted to see her fail. With each sleepless night, she got closer to the answer, but the shadows of the company haunted her, and the tension between her and Alex only grew. The diary was her only hope, the only weapon she had to unravel the mystery and save her family, but the revelations it contained could change the game completely. Alex, with his inflated ego and arrogance, believed his bet with Chloe was a sure bet, and he didn't hesitate to use all his power to ensure her failure. He began orchestrating a series of obstacles, as if playing chess, moving the pieces to corner her. He cut funding for her project, making it nearly impossible to purchase new reagents or essential equipment. And it didn't stop there. He denied her access to crucial samples, the very ones that would lead her to a cure, creating a barrier of bureaucracy and authority. He was so convinced of his superiority that he believed Chloe, without his resources, wouldn't even come close to deciphering the mystery. The already tense work environment became a minefield for Chloe. She felt alone, isolated, as if all eyes were on her, waiting for her to fail. But amid Alex's boycott, she found a ray of hope. A geeky intern, a brilliant young man disillusioned with the company's internal politics, realized what was happening and became an unlikely ally. He used his tech skills to circumvent Alex's restrictions and obtain the information and data Chloe needed to continue her research. However, where there was an ally, there was an enemy. An envious scientist, who always wanted credit for the discovery, realized that Chloe was on the right track, and his envy turned him into an obstacle. He began sabotaging Chloe's samples, spreading rumors about her, and trying to steal attention for himself, hoping that if Chloe failed, he could claim credit for the discovery. The race against time turned into a race against a flesh-and-blood enemy, willing to do anything to see Chloe fall. The pressure mounted with each passing day, and the deadline loomed dangerously close. The media, closely monitoring the outbreak, began to pressure the lab for answers, and the board, concerned about the company's reputation, demanded immediate results. Chloe felt the weight of all these expectations on her shoulders, and with each tick of the clock, her anxiety grew. The challenge that began as an indecent bet turned into a test of character, resilience, and strength, and the whole world was watching, waiting to see if she would fail. With corporate pressure and Alex's boycott, Chloe realized that the race for a cure wasn't just about science, but also about politics and power. She needed to outsmart her enemies, using her intelligence and hard work to overcome the obstacles Alex and the envious scientists threw in her way. She immersed herself in research, working day and night, searching for a loophole, a solution no one else had considered, knowing that the fate of many lay in her hands. Time was running out, and the ultimatum was clear: results. Chloe found herself in a situation where she could no longer hide. She had to face every challenge head-on, and with every step she took toward the solution, more enemies revealed themselves, more obstacles appeared in her path. Alex's bet, which had seemed like a cruel joke at first, was now the only thing keeping her motivated, the only way to prove that her genius was more than he could have imagined. She knew the truth was in her hands, and that the DC scientist's diary held the key to everything. Now, the big question was whether she could piece it all together in time and expose the truth, not only to save her job, her reputation, and her family, but also to expose Alex's corruption and arrogance. The tide was turning, but no one knew what the final outcome would be. The race against time reached a dramatic turning point one cold, rainy night when an unexpected emergency in the lab forced Chloe and Alex to work together. The tension between them was palpable, a mix of rivalry and resentment hanging heavy in the air. However, with the urgency of the situation, the barriers began to fall. Alex, who until then had viewed Chloe's work only with disdain, was forced to witness her intelligence and dedication up close, and her every move, every swift and precise decision, left him more impressed than he cared to admit. As the night wore on and they both immersed themselves in their research, Alex's cynicism began to fade, revealing something unexpected: his humanity. He, who had always hidden behind an armor of arrogance and power, showed a glimpse of vulnerability. They shared a moment of silence, where mockery gave way to mutual respect and a reluctant attraction, something they both felt but neither dared to voice. It was a dangerous interplay of emotions and glances, a dance of unresolved feelings that blended past and present. Chloe, fueled by this new dynamic, dove even deeper into her research, driven by unwavering determination. With Alex by her side, she felt stronger and more capable of handling the pressure and obstacles he himself had created. She worked tirelessly, day and night, piecing together the puzzle the DC scientist's journal had revealed, and with each step, she felt closer to the solution. And then, the moment arrived. Amidst samples and notes, Chloe finally isolated the pathogen, the source of the outbreak that was terrifying everyone. She found the key, the answer the whole world was searching for, but exhaustion hit her like a tidal wave. Her shoulders slumped, and the weight of all the effort left her exhausted, but she couldn't stop now. She was one step closer to a cure. The eureka was a silent scream. Chloe looked at the result, and a wave of relief and triumph washed over her. She felt like an explorer who had finally found the treasure at journey's end. But she was vulnerable, her body and mind were at their limit, and she knew the journey wasn't over yet. What to do now that she had the answer? She had the power, the weapon, to expose the corruption and save her family, but she also knew this discovery would come at a price. She had to decide whether to share the information with Alex, the man who had humiliated her, or whether to act alone. The choice was hers, and the fate of many lives lay in her hands. The night of the discovery had transformed the dynamic between them and the course of all history, and what would happen next was uncertain. The morning after the discovery set the stage for the final confrontation. Chloe, with irrefutable evidence in hand, was ready to present her discovery, a meeting that would seal the fate of the lab and the truth behind the outbreak. Alex, realizing the tide was turning, made one last desperate move. He tried to steal credit for the discovery, but Chloe, anticipating his move, had a plan. She didn't back down, not even an inch, and with the coolness of a scientist, presented the evidence proving that all the credit belonged to her. Chloe, at the height of her power, exposed the truth. She used Alex's mockery against him, publicly revealing his sabotaging actions and the motive behind their past rivalry. Her voice was calm, but her words were like daggers, striking Alex where it hurt most, his ego and his reputation. The room fell silent, and all eyes turned to Alex, who, for the first time, found himself cornered, with nowhere to run. Alex's armor finally cracked. He didn't deny Chloe's work or the evidence she presented. Instead, in an unexpected and vulnerable confession, he admitted that underestimating her was a grave mistake. He revealed that his arrogance wasn't just a personality trait, but rather a shield he used to hide his fears, and that the rivalry between them was actually a thinly veiled attraction he couldn't quite express. Alex's confession took everyone by surprise. That arrogant man, who always seemed to have everything under control, was just a human being who, like everyone else, had his own insecurities and fears. The truth, which Chloe had sought for so long, finally came to light, and the bet, which seemed like a cruel game, became a catalyst for redemption. The future of the lab, and the future of Chloe and Alex's relationship, lay in her hands. With the truth revealed, she had the power to make a decision, but Alex's confession made her question everything she thought she knew about him. She wondered if the man who dared to show his vulnerability was the same one who had humiliated her, and what that meant for their future. Now, the decision was hers. She had the cure, the proof, the truth, and Alex's confession. What to do with it all? Their story didn't end there. It was just beginning, and the choices she made from that moment on would change the course of everything. The happy ending was in Chloe's hands, and the big question was, what would she do with the truth? News of the discovery spread like wildfire, and Chloe, the underappreciated lab technician, became the heroine of the story. She delivered the cure and saved the day, and the whole world applauded her genius. He revealed that his arrogance wasn't just a personality trait, but rather a shield he used to hide his fears, and that the rivalry between them was actually a thinly veiled attraction he couldn't quite express. Alex's confession took everyone by surprise. That arrogant man, who always seemed to have everything under control, was just a human being who, like everyone else, had his own insecurities and fears. The truth, which Chloe had sought for so long, finally came to light, and the bet, which seemed like a cruel game, became a catalyst for redemption. The future of the lab, and the future of Chloe and Alex's relationship, lay in her hands. With the truth revealed, she had the power to make a decision, but Alex's confession made her question everything she thought she knew about him. She wondered if the man who dared to show his vulnerability was the same one who had humiliated her, and what that meant for their future. Now, the decision was hers. She had the cure, the proof, the truth, and Alex's confession. What to do with it all? Their story didn't end there. It was just beginning, and the choices she made from that moment on would change the course of everything. The happy ending was in Chloe's hands, and the big question was, what would she do with the truth? News of the discovery spread like wildfire, and Chloe, the underappreciated lab technician, became the heroine of the story. She delivered the cure and saved the day, and the whole world applauded her genius. The board, which had previously ignored her and pressured her for results, now welcomed her with a smile, and global recognition was a prize she had earned through merit and hard work. It was the victory she deserved, and proof that dedication and talent always trump arrogance and power. But victory came with a condition, and the time had come for Alex to fulfill his bet. He, once the master of truth and lord of all, now found himself in a situation from which he had nowhere to run. In front of everyone, he knelt, in a gesture that seemed a mixture of parody and sincerity. The mocking smile Chloe knew so well was absent, and the expression on his face was one of vulnerability. He looked at her, and with a choked voice, he said, "Dr. Chloe, will you marry me?" The marriage proposal, made at such an unusual moment, left everyone speechless. The audience held their breath, waiting to see Chloe's reaction, whether she would accept or decline the proposal. But Chloe, with the calm of a scientist, showed that her motivation went far beyond a marital prize. She declined marriage, but she did so with a touch of class and a lesson for everyone watching. She looked at Alex, and in a firm voice, said that the only thing she ever wanted was respect and the position of power he deserved. The bet wasn't about getting married, but about prove your worth. She didn't want a marital prize, but an equal professional partnership. Flo accepted the partnership, but not literally. A marriage of scientific souls, where mutual respect and passion for science were the foundation of the relationship. The attraction between them, previously repressed, could now blossom in an environment of respect and admiration. Chloe's decision came as a shock to everyone, but it was the only choice she could make. She wasn't interested in power or wealth, but in being recognized for her work and talent. She wanted everyone to see her for who she was, a brilliant scientist and a strong woman who wouldn't bow down to anything. Chloe's story wasn't just about science, but about the courage to be who she was and the strength to fight for what was hers. Chloe, now in a position of power, had the opportunity to make a difference in the world. She had the cure, the respect of her peers, and the chance to change the future of science forever. Her story proved that a woman's strength, when underestimated, can change the world. Chloe and Alex's journey was over, but their story of respect and attraction was just beginning. Chloe's rise was meteoric, but well-deserved. She took on a leadership position, not out of whim, but out of pure competence. The council, in a gesture of recognition of her value, offered her Thelex's chair or a new research division, with complete autonomy so she could explore her talent and change the course of science. Chloe's victory wasn't just personal, it was a legacy for all the women who, like her, are underestimated in their fields of work. Humiliation and mockery were replaced by a professional passion and, who knows, for a more mature romance. Alex was humanized through experience, and his arrogance gave way to deep admiration. He became an ally, a partner who respected her unconditionally, not out of obligation, but by choice. The dynamic between them, which had previously been one of power and rivalry, was now one of equality and mutual respect. A final dinner is set in a new meeting, but the atmosphere is completely different. Chloe is at the head of the table, with Alex at her side, discussing the next big challenge for the lab. The tension that once existed between them has been replaced by a silent complicity. The exchange an inside joke, a knowing look, a knowing smile, showing that their journey from rivalry to respect was not in vain. They are no longer boss and employee, but partners, working together for a greater good. Their future is uncertain, but one thing is certain: they are not alone, and together, they can make a difference in the world.